We think Wi-Fi is sort of table stakes. It's really the foundational piece that gives us the access to be able to see the data, to then be able to do a lot more intelligent things and provide better insights to our service provider customers.
Today on The Signal, Plume says it's helping ISPs provide better service by aggregating data about how people use Wi-Fi at home. Hello, this is Martha DeGrasse here again for Wi-Fi Alliance, and this is The Signal, our podcast where we give you the inside track on Wi-Fi. These are meant to be smart conversations with industry leaders. We want to deliver a new perspective on the growing portfolio of Wi-Fi technologies that we see changing the connectivity landscape. And today we are delighted to be joined by Shane Paola. He is VP of Sales for EMEA at Plume. Shane, thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Martha.
Well, Plume is someone that we've wanted to have on the podcast for a long time, so we're really glad you could be here. I think consumers may know Plume as those cute pluggable pods that you can use to spread the Wi-Fi signal around your house. But it's really the cloud software that's your secret sauce, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Martha. So it's a common misconception that Plume is the smart, beautiful, aesthetically pleasing pods that we've designed. But actually, what we do is we've actually used OpenSync, which is an open source piece of software, which is what sits on those pods. And it's also what sits on a huge ecosystem of other third-party hardware providers. So we have around 35 plus devices that have been certified with OpenSync today. And that's what enables all the great features that people see on the Plume pods today. They can receive all those same smart services on other third-party devices as well. But you're right that the real benefit of Plume is in the cloud architecture that we've built. So leveraging AI technologies, we not only perform much more complex algorithms through the power of the cloud, but we're also able to deliver new value-added services at an unmatched scale and speed to our service providers and their customers.
And you have literally hundreds of service provider customers, is that right?
We do. So right now, globally, we have more than 275 service providers that have placed their trust in Plume and placed their investment in Plume and our platform. And that's ranging from very small regional service providers that maybe service a county right up to some of the major players in the industry, some household names.
Okay, great. And is one of your value propositions for them not just great Wi-Fi, but also the data and the analytics that they can gather through your service, right?
We think like Wi-Fi is sort of table stakes. That's kind of the foundational elements. I mean, there are other alternatives that do good enough Wi-Fi. We think we do the best Wi-Fi, but it's really the foundational piece that gives us the access to be able to see the data, to then be able to do a lot more intelligent things and provide better insights to our service provider customers.
And then can they sort of turn that around to increase their revenue per user, or is that part of what they try to do?
It can be a mix. I mean, we've seen a few different ways service providers have taken Plume to market or incorporated Plume into their service offers. So some see it as just a value add. So they may actually absorb that cost into their product offering, and they use that as a way to differentiate themselves against their competition because they're delivering a higher quality of service or a higher value of service to the customer. We've seen others that are charging for that premium service and they're increasing ARPU in that way. But like I said, we've been seeing a few different ways that people are taking it to market, and I think it's interesting to see how they're doing that.
Excellent. All right. Has Wi-Fi 6 changed your business?
I wouldn't say it's changed the business. I think it's obviously helpful. I think any of these changes and transitions in Wi-Fi standards and technologies opens up a new range of opportunities for both the service providers and the consumers. But essentially, like, we're still moving at the same pace, whether it be Wi-Fi 5, Wi-Fi 6, tomorrow Wi-Fi 7. We'll continue to evolve and develop and deliver great value to our customers.
Okay, so one of the advantages, I think, of your OpenSync software is it helps to gather a lot of data, and so you've sort of emerged as a leader in smart home data analysis. So what are some of the trends that you may have seen with that in terms of the way people were using Wi-Fi in the home during the pandemic and may continue to use it even as the pandemic hopefully ends? Yeah,
so, I mean, we've seen quite a few trends. I mean, I'll share a few statistics if that's okay and just a few key data points that we've seen. But Obviously, the pandemic fueled a major shift to working from home and hybrid working. I've seen it in the press, like many companies are embracing hybrid work. Some are going all in on hybrid work. And the Plume data shows that despite that variable nature of the pandemic, there's a number of people still active at home during the working day, which remains well above the pre-pandemic normal situation. So just to highlight that point, for example, in the US, there were 22.6 million people who were active online in Plume-powered homes during the working day before COVID-19 hit. And then post-pandemic, so May 2022, we've seen 41.1 million were active online during the working day. So that's an increase of 82% from pre-COVID norms. Now, we've also seen households adding more devices to their networks. We've seen new Wi-Fi generations. Cyber threats have been well above pre-pandemic normals. So things like in April 21, 50% of homes had 19 devices or more, while the top 10% exceeded 41 devices. May 21, we had Wi-Fi 6 deployments growing by 63% in the US and 45% in Europe. And for the year ending August 31, Plume's adaptive Wi-Fi carried out 206 billion steering events to optimize home networks. So we've seen some immense amount of traffic and usage happening in those smart homes. Here's some more data points for you. So in the US, entertainment devices, specifically smart TVs, have seen the highest percentage of growth in cyber threats. And meanwhile, in Europe, it topped the chart in terms of geographies with 658 threats blocked on average per household in May 2021. And at the height of the pandemic, the average number of security threats blocked by Plume's cybersecurity service was up 100% over the pre-pandemic norm. And at the peak of the first wave of the pandemic, we saw home network load and congestion peak at 69% and 80%, more than the typical pre-COVID baseline. So there's been, like I said, there's been some significant changes occurring well above what the pre-pandemic normal was or were to where they are now.
So that is great data. Now, some trends that developed during the pandemic may persist. Obviously, if you've brought new devices into your home, you're not going to probably get rid of them just because the pandemic's ending. But other trends may not persist. Do you have any insight on how behavior may have changed permanently or what trends may go back to more pre-pandemic norms?
So I think what the data is telling us, our first half smart home report that we released a month ago, what it's telling us is consumers' appetites for adding more and more IoT devices into their homes is just continuing to grow. Now, with that growth, we're also seeing complexity that comes by having more devices connecting to the networks. People's expectations, they've access to better broadband speeds is becoming more widely accessible these days. And so their perception is, if I've got better broadband, I should be having a better experience inside of the home. But with all of those new devices comes complexity. So what we're working hard to do as Plume, again, using the power of the cloud platform, is to be able to recognize the complexity and the disturbances that are happening inside the home, creating optimizations, and then we continuously fine-tune and optimize our customers' networks, on a daily basis. But in terms of the trends, I don't see that slowing down. That seems like a trend. The data was telling us people want comfort, convenience, and security. And all of the data points we've seen in terms of the types of devices that are being brought into the home definitely reflect that point.
What's the average number of devices in a home now? Have you seen that?
It's up over 17 devices per home.
Wow. How fast is that number growing, do you think?
It's growing at around 10% per annum.
Do you think that's going to continue, or maybe we'll top out? We're getting crowded in our houses, right?
Yeah. Well, I think everything is, I think the industry in general is creating more smart devices. I think people are getting used to consuming technology in a smart fashion. And, so I don't see that slowing down anytime soon.
And some of those are wearables, right, which don't take up much room at all. So
exactly. Some of them are wearables. Some of them are kind of, they're static and they're tucked away because they're doing home automation functions and stuff in the house. So I don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
And you mentioned huge growth in Wi-Fi 6 deployments. I think you said about 63% growth just in May. So is that particularly applicable for certain smart home devices, like maybe smart TVs or those that might require a lot of bandwidth?
Yeah, we are definitely seeing a great increase in smart TVs. We're seeing a huge increase also in other streaming devices, so things like set-top boxes. speakers. All of those are high growth areas for us inside of plume-powered homes. But look, it's probably important to understand, Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6E, whilst it's moving the specifications forward, it's not suddenly going to resolve all of the issues that occur inside of the home, the complexity that comes with these new devices joining the networks. And that's something we're working hard on keeping permanently optimized in a plume-powered house.
That's very important. Okay, great. What about disparities between countries in terms of data consumption or number of devices? Have you found any of those in your data?
Yeah, it was interesting. It's noticeable in the US. I mean, we really did our research across 3 core territories, US, Europe, and Japan. And between those 3 geographies, what we saw was the US had by far and away the highest amount of data consumption per household. It was more than double the Europe standards or Europe averages and almost triple the Japan's averages in terms of just raw data consumption. But
is that we have more devices in the US or we use more data per device or both of those?
Look, it could be a mix. I mean, it's hard to ascertain. I mean, it could be consumer behavior. Maybe that's just a function of life in North America that's different to Europe and Japan, but it could equally be the number of devices that are connecting into the home networks and the availability of high-speed networks. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Any other trends that you found in your smart home data that you want to highlight for us here?
Look, I think to summarize, just going back to an earlier point I said, I mean, the overwhelming trend, I guess, that we saw when we kind of break down all of the data that we've seen in the report, and it's quite a thorough report, I'm sure you've read it, but the overwhelming theme that's coming out of that is what consumers want, which is comfort, security and convenience in their homes. So, we're seeing types of devices and device categories that are growing in consumption of data and also quality of devices being added to smart home networks. And with this comes complexity. So that can have a negative impact on a customer's experience. So we're seeing like interferences happening inside of the home being on the rise. So the number of fast interference optimizations we're having to perform is increasing nearly 50% as a result of this influx of devices. But ultimately, what this means, I guess, for our service provider customers as well, is what that tells them is not only should they be thinking about that theme of comfort, convenience, and security when they're developing products and services for their customers, but also maybe where they want to channel some investments in more sophisticated management so they have better visibility and knowledge of what's happening in their consumers' homes, and also actionable insights so they can look a little bit further forward in the future as they're planning. So that's probably the key themes in the Plume IQ.
That's great. All right. Shane Paola, VP of Sales for EMEA at Plume. Thank you so much for being here to tell us about the Plume IQ Smart Home Market Report. This has been The Signal. Thank you very much for being a guest.
Thanks, Martha. Cheers.
Cheers. And that is our show. You can check the show notes for links to some of the resources we discussed today. And as always, for all things Wi-Fi, visit y-fi.org, wi-fi.org. That's the Wi-Fi Alliance. You can also find links there to past episodes of this podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and join us next time on The Signal.